Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to welcome back to the show an actress all the way from California. This is her second time on the show. This time she's calling on her own. Kayla Tabish is joining me right now. Hello, Kayla, and welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. And last time we had you on, it was more of a collective interview with the cast of Hidden Valley. And here you are. You said you wanted to be back this time for a solo interview. So before we begin, I want to thank you for nominating this show for a Shorty Award. I truly appreciate it. I just want to start off with that. Thank you for nominating the show.
Of course. And for the listeners that don't know, Shorty Awards is like a social networking type of nomination. It's done for the people, by the people, and your show is just so great. So I was glad to incorporate that into their awards as well.
And it's definitely cool to see that social media is getting involved as far as awards is concerned. Um, but now let's focus on you. Now that you are here, how did you get started in acting?
Well, that's actually a pretty fun story. um, I had went to school at San Diego State, and I mean, I had always loved acting a little bit here and there. From Washington State originally, and so I had an agent up there, and just like a few bit things there. But when I was able to come to San Diego, I was in the middle of school, and just something was missing. I was in a sorority, and I appeared to be happy on the surface, but it was calling my name. So I just kind of dropped everything and made my way up to LA, and it was my first job. When you come to LA, you don't know anyone or anything, so you really can't gauge where to begin. So I started out with doing a little bit of extra work, and I was in the background for The Girl Next Door, and it was the second day of shooting, and the director, Luke Greenfield, came up to me and was like, "Hey, actually, we have a role that would be great for you. How would you like to audition at a production trailer?" So I got the role of Kathy in The Girl Next Door alongside Emile Hirsch and Alicia Cuthbert, and went from literally being an extra on the set one day to the very next day sitting in my own trailer. So it was a really surreal, definitely that was some luck. Since then, you kind of make your own luck, and my path has kind of opened up since then. But those events, Luke Greenfield, I'll always have a special place for him. He kind of got me my start.
You mentioned producing. Not only are you an actress, but you're a producer, which is a segue to the next question. What made you decide to get into producing?
Producing actually is something that was kind of thrown into my lap. Um, I've always been inspired to do the acting, and I just love bodying the personality of someone else and the power that that gives you, and the challenge that comes with that. But with producing, I was working on a film called Lauren Cast, which actually was an indie film that had some great success for an indie film. So we were really fortunate, and it was just under 200K budget, so it was a fairly small budget film, and things were kind of, I won't say, falling apart, but they were definitely in turmoil, and I more or less kind of stepped up to the plate, helped with some post-funding, helped with a lot that had to do with the project from that point on, with the long road before we actually got the actual distribution. It was like about 2 years. And so they made me a producer, and I was like, I really love this. And since then, I went on to, in the process of executive producing a couple projects, and kind of chauffeuring the funding process for that, as well as some projects that I came along, and producing Hidden Valley, the one you had our whole group on, the werewolf teen epic film. And what I love about is the creation of it. It's really a producer. If you think of a symphony, it's the conductor. You're the one that's taking X, Y, and Z and making it all together into something beautiful. And that's a lot of fun. It's a challenge chapter for me.
Oh, here's an interesting question, and I don't think I've ever asked a question like this in nearly 6 year history of the show. Um, what's the origin of your name, Kayla Tabish?
Um, I'm glad you asked because I do get this question a lot because I'm tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, and I have a Lebanese last name that actually comes from my father. And I've been asked if I chose that name, similar to like how Madonna does. But no, it's my birth name. It's Lebanese, and then I'm Swedish. My grandmother was actually a first-generation immigrant, and that's kind of the history of it.
For those who just tuning in, you are listening and chilling with Jeff and Kenny C right here on itmiradio.com, Talk Channel 2. I'm joined with actress Kayla Tabish. So when you're not doing acting or producing, when you're not busy, what are some of the things you like to do in your free time?
Well, my family actually owns a couple racehorses, so that's something that I'm really passionate about. Here in LA, we have Santa Anita Park, and we also have Hollywood Park. And I kind of grew up on the backside of a racetrack. My father was a horse race trainer back in the 80s, like the late 80s. So that was in Washington State. I kind of grew up on the backside of Playboy, or I'm sorry, Playfair. It's been a while since I've been up to Playfair racetrack. And then my mom took the horses down here after my father passed away, and she's had a good number of success with it. There's also Del Mar, which is in San Diego. And for listeners that are ever looking for something fun to do, it's a great industry, and there's lots to do for families, all the way to like 20-somethings. You put on, you find a derby hat and go out for a day of fun, and you can pick your pony based on, the color of it, or if you're really into it, there's forums and programs, and you can actually study up on their past records and try to make a calculated decision. But at the end of the day, it's just a good excuse to get together and watch the horses. Aside from that, I'm pretty passionate about some of the nonprofits that I work with. The Innocence Project in particular, and they are advocating for change in our current judicial system. There's a lot of people that are currently incarcerated. Prior to 1994, when we didn't have DNA testing, it would go off of eyewitness testimony, and a lot of these people would be put away innocent. And actually, since the birth of the Innocence Project, 300 people, innocent people, have been exonerated, and their names have been cleared, and they've been released as a result of this nonprofit. So I'm speaking out on their behalf whenever I can publicly, so here I am. If any of the listeners feel so inclined to jump in, it's not really asking. I mean, you can always give a monetary contribution, but if you just go to the innocenceproject.org, you can always fill out auto forms, and those go to the state to grant stays of execution, to push for DNA evidence for people that are on death row. I think it was maybe a week and a half ago. They had another person that was out of Texas, and he was on death row. And the fact of it was, back when his case came about, they didn't test all of his evidence with DNA. And because of a result of what Innocence Project pushed for, and all the people that rallied and signed these auto forms, it takes 2 minutes. You just sign that you want everything's filled out for you. You put your name in, and you push to have the DNA evidence, the evidence tested for DNA. And they actually granted him a stay of execution. He was, I think, he was on death row, and I think that his date was coming up within 30 days or less. So just making a difference with that. I also work with a couple of other nonprofits like Be the Link, that's HIV and AIDS awareness, and Don't Worry, Be Happy, which is a wonderful message for cancer warriors. They sell T-shirts and do all sorts of benefits and events to raise awareness for cancer, and then also funding. So I just keep busy, aside from the obvious.
That's definitely it's definitely amazing for someone like yourself. Not only you pursuing Hollywood, but you reaching out to the community, and you have these charities going on. That's not a whole lot of actors, actresses, Hollywood stars that's even give a thought of doing charities like the ones you doing. So I got a lot of respect
That's
for
such
you for
a
that.
interesting statement because, I feel like if you have the ability to influence others and if you're in the spotlight, I mean, by definition, I have a very long ways to go. By in no means am saying that, I have this huge influence, but I definitely have a circle that I can influence, and why not spread positive change? We're living in a world that has a lot of fracture and corruption and deception, and there's a lot of sad things that happen to good people, and if you can inspire change, like for instance the Innocence Project, and change 300 people's lives, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Well said. Absolutely well said. In one of your films, you have Lauren Cass received a glowing review in Variety and the New York Times. So what people want to know, well, for I want to know too, why should people check out this film?
Well, we were very fortunate with the press. For an independent film, there's no guarantee that it's ever going to see the light of day when you make it. Most of the studio-backed films already have contracts to come out in theaters. So for us, we were really fortunate that the press kind of got what was at the core of the film when we did get those reviews. And then we got a limited theatrical release, which we were very fortunate. It's available now on DVD for any listeners that want to check it out. The reason I would say to see it is it's a story of life. It centers around three adolescents and their experiences coming of age, but it's also in the backdrop of the 1994 race riots that took place in St. Petersburg, Florida. So it's kind of factually based, as well as there's a fictional story inside of that. The story, though, itself really isn't about the characters per se. It's more about a general feeling, and that's one of like depression and a void, and this, it's celebrating the ugly things. That's their catchphrase. And I really feel like a lot of people, they either love it or hate it. That's the truth of it. But a lot of people can take something great away from the film because it's kind of like this common emotional ground. So if anyone would like to check it out, it's a fun ride. It's definitely not your popcorn flick. There's some pretty disturbing content. I don't know if you're familiar with Larry Clark's Kids. We were compared to that by Variety, and New York Times compared the film to some of early works from Gus Van Sant, which are huge compliments, but definitely dirty, dirty content.
And what was your character like in that film?
Well, my character is so different from myself. I'm always bubbly and smiling, and she was one that was living in personal torment. She was promiscuous and depressed, and it's kind of that stage that I think everyone goes through a little bit in their adolescence. Like, you're mixing your life with your hormones, and this realization that you can impact the world, but you feel so small because you're transitioning from child to, in my character's case, to woman. And I felt like embodying her was a little depressing at times, but I'm very different from my character, but it was really fun to jump into that. And so for her, I hope that a lot of people can relate to those dark moments and just kind of find a commonality in the fact that we're not alone, and there always is a light at the end of the tunnel. You never know what's around the next bend. Because I know sometimes depression, people make rash decisions, and so it's just kind of seeing beyond yourself, and that was kind of what my character exemplifies.
Now, in some of the films you have done, you play some sexy roles. Now,
Yeah.
are the love scenes or the sex scenes, are they, do you consider them difficult to do with a co-worker on set? Is it something that keeps people off guard? Gets them nervous? Anything, things of that nature?
Absolutely. We're all human. So when you're in that moment, there's several people. There's like, cinematographer, the first base AD and the AC there to operate the camera, along with a whole crew of grips and gappers. So really, it's not intimate, even though you have to make it look intimate. And then, essentially, it's a co. you want chemistry, and you want that to transcend on screen, but the actual reality of it is a really mechanical thing. It's making it appear to be in the moment and appear to be real. For me, Lauren Cass, like I said, my character was promiscuous. That was interesting. When I first got to set, it was shot in St. Petersburg on location. I'm from LA. Well, not originally, but I reside in LA. So I had just got to set maybe 24 hours. I had just gotten into town 24 hours before we jumped into some of this hot and heavy stuff. So nobody really knew me. I was the new girl because they shot for a period of time, and my shooting days were separated from everything else because they don't shoot consecutively to the script. They shoot out of order depending on what locations they can get. And so it was a little awkward. It was kind of like, hey, nice to meet you. And then, several hours later, we're rolling around in the sheets. But just kind of, for me, letting those surroundings dissolve, you have to. You don't see the people that are in front of you. You see the moment, and hopefully you just hope for the best that shows on camera.
I guess when it comes to these love scenes, I guess it depends on how many takes it takes, how many attempts that it takes for it to be done, and the way the director wants it to be done. I mean, yeah, like you said, with people, we get caught up sometimes. Things happens, I guess. You living in California, like any other, like a lot of people, you run into celebrities. Who do you consider the coolest celeb you've ever, hang with, or hung with for that matter?
Yeah, LA has definitely risen with celebrities, but for me, it would be Dennis Hopper, most definitely. We've tragically lost him, and he made a great on American cinema. I met him at Vegas in 2007, which was a little date festival, film program with Sundance, and it was a world our film program there, and it's actually Dennis Hopper's film festival. So I met him on several occasions, but one time in particular when we sat down and got to really dive into the conversation was at Caesar's Palace at the Casa Fuente cigar lounge. And so him and I and others sat around and smoked some cigars, which I think it was my first cigar. I'm not really a cigar kind of girl, but when in Rome, do as they say, act as if. But it was really fun just to have a conversation with him. He was speaking about this generation and the transition that this generation's having in film. And it's tragic that we've lost such a creative soul, but his contributions live on.
All right. And who's a celebrity out there that you haven't had a chance to meet, but you would like to, spend some time with someday? Who's a celebrity out there that you want to hang with someday?
That's a good question. I would push towards Matt Damon. I really respect him as a filmmaker and also as an actor. I kind of would want to ask him about his story. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole Good Will Hunting, and it was his very first film that he produced and put together, and they won an Academy Award, and him and Ben Affleck was a duo. Going from that point to now, he's pushing for social change, economic change. He's always making a difference, kind of like how you spoke. But it's nice when some celebrities take their power and they push it into the right places. He's always advocating for change for education, our current educational system. And then he just did that film, The Promised Land, on fracking, which is a whole industry that's kind of eroding away at our environment for monetary gain for big business. So it would definitely be him. And who knows, manifested. Maybe that'll happen.
You know what they say, never say never. I mean,
Absolutely.
and you live in L.A. I'm surprised people don't run into celebrities every day. with them wanting to get themselves out there, want to live their normal lives, but paparazzi and TMZ is not that far behind. But I'm surprised people don't run into celebrities every day, especially those that live in LA. That's
That's
definitely
true.
that's interesting. Um,
I think they try to stay as incognito as possible because of the paparazzi. The paparazzi can be really, I mean, I have some friends that are paparazzi that are great people, but a lot of them can be really overbearing, and so you almost feel sorry for some of these celebrities.
yeah, that's definitely a key word, overbearing. Regardless of what they look like or what they dressed up like, or whether they just want to take a walk with their kid, and I mean they just want to spend time with each other. And paparazzi not that far behind, like I say. Um, so I know a lot of people are definitely looking forward to the indie horror film Hidden Valley. Could you give us an update on that and what's going on with the film, and do you have any word on when that film will be released?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about one. So when we talked last, I think you had John Woodward and John Buchler on board, and John Buchler is the director of Friday the 13th, Part 5, and he's set to direct the film, so we're really excited about that. We just signed Boo Boo Stewart. He was in all three of the Twilight films, and so he's attached on to play one of the characters. We're really excited about the project. We should be going into production in the next 3 to 4 months. So then I would anticipate probably a release for the latter part of this year or early 2014. On IMDb it says 2014, so I'm assuming that it's probably going to lean a little closer to that. You have all of your post-production that they have to go through. But to give you an update, we're really excited. There's several other star attachments that we have for the project, so it's going to be a real great ensemble cast. And I know John Woodward, the writer and producer, he's really excited at all the press that we're getting around it. And check out the Facebook fan page. It's Hidden Valley the Movie, or I'm sorry, Hidden Valley the Awakening, and the website Hidden Valley the Movie for updates. It's going to be a fun ride. It's going to be bloody and gory, but it's definitely going to be a fun ride.
And I want to give a shout out to all the cast that called in last year. It was great talking to them all. Um, and other than Hidden Valley, what are some other projects you have in the works?
Well, I'm starting a project called Wizard Dream, which is actually also directed by John Carl Buchler, who did Friday the 13th, among many other things. That's just, the one I always put. But it's a really cool story, and it spoke to me on so many levels when I read the script. So I'm really excited about that, and that should be shooting in the next 45 days, 45 to 60 days here in LA, in and around the vicinity of LA. It's a story of an older man. He's like maybe in his late 70s, and he has dementia and Alzheimer's, and he starts having these dreams that are almost like premonitions, and in these dreams, um, everything that's happening in these dreams starts to actually manifest into reality. And so my character is his sort of caretaker nurse, and there's so many twists and turns within that, but if you can imagine the premise being what he dreams is sort of what becomes the reality for my character and for the world that they're involved in. And John's really talented. He's going to create this whole other world. There's two parallel worlds, a fantasy world and then the reality world. And the fantasy world is dragons and monsters and ghouls and goblins. And it's going to be really cool. He's going to do a little bit of backdrop to CGI, but for the most part, they're going to go like 1980s style, early 90s, where they actually create prosthetics and create a lot of these monsters themselves. So it'll have a really cool feel to it. It won't be as computer generated as a lot of the horror films that come out now. This one's probably more along the lines of fantasy, although there's definitely some horror elements to it.
And my last question is for people that want to get in touch with you social media wise, Why don't you go ahead and promote your links, Twitter, Facebook, website, or any other links people need to know.
Absolutely. So I'd love to connect with y'all. It's Kayla Tabish, Kayla as in boy, ISH. And you can find me on Twitter. It's my name straight up, at Kayla Tabish. You can find me on Facebook for my fan page. Again, that's Facebook /Kayla Tabish. And then you're welcome to friend me on my profile page as well. I'm always happy to talk with people. I'm really approachable, and that's the fans are everything. So yeah, I invite you to connect.
All I'm gonna say is everybody remember the name Kayla Tabish. She's got a lot of things in store in 2013 going for it, and just keep an eye on her Facebook, Twitter. Pretty much Google her, and you'll get more info on her there too. Kayla, it was great talking to you again. Had a lot of fun,
Yeah, such a pleasure.
and just m- much success goes out to you. Thank you for your
Thank you,
time,
Shannon.
and you have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.
That was actress Kayla Tabish joining me here on Chillin with Jeff and Kenny.